We are live. Hi, everybody. This is Steve Sabadeski, publisher of BayouBuzz.com. And today we're going to be talking a little bit politics, but with a pist or a twist or whatever with Chris Champagne, a friend of mine who has a stand-up comic. He's even a comic when he sits down, to be honest with you. But I do see that you're on your Facebook page, so that's a good sign. Good. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit loud, just so that we know that everybody can hear us. How's it going, Chris?
Okay, Steve. Thank you for having me. Why is my head so small and yours so big? I don't know. On my screen, anyway. I don't know if that's how the world is seeing it out there. Can you see me?
Yeah, I do, and I think it's just the opposite. I think that yours is big, and I'm the one who's small.
Okay. This is kind of like a moving mugshot, this animated mugshot, this webcast stuff. Well, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it. The show's called News with the Pist, so there won't be any confusion with News with the Twist.
Yeah. So real quickly, if you don't mind, why don't you tell us, give some background information about yourself first. Tell us how you got started in doing comedy routines.
Well, actually, as a specific answer to that. Actually, I used to write poetry when I was a teenager, and not really seriously, just as something to do, as a pastime more than anything else, I suppose, as maybe a creative outlet. And after I got divorced, I started writing again, and I actually took a walk through the mall one night, and there was a book of poetry, and I kind of looked at it and looked at the back of the book, and it said how funny the poems were, and I kind of flipped through the book, and I said, these poems aren't funny, but I can do funny. So I went home and I started writing funny poems. So then I was always very shy to talk in front of an audience, so it took me a while to get the nerve to go to a poetry reading, and I read some of my poems, and they were funny, and thankfully that night the people responded favorably, so I continued to do that. And from that, I got involved with a group of people who were doing a show. Among them, Chris Rose was in that show. Bunny Matthews had a monologue that was in that show that he wrote. Suzanne Stuss from Tom's Picayune was in that show. And Lisa D'Amour was also in that show as a performer and writer, and she's now been, she's a local writer who wrote the play Airline Highway and another play, Detroit, which were finalists for the Pulitzer Prize. For the Pulitzer Prize. So she's going on to do a lot of great things. So I was in that show. That was the first show that I was actually on stage doing poetry. And some of the people in that show actually decided to do another theatrical show with some comedy. And I was too afraid, basically, to do it, the comedy myself on stage. So I just would write things for people.
Okay, so let me interrupt you. You need to sit a little bit further back. I know that the sound issue, but you're too close to the screen.
All right, sorry. I didn't mean to scare you.
Yeah, well, no, it didn't scare me.
No, okay. Well, you should be, okay, but okay. All right, how's that?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's
okay,
super.
All right.
Okay.
Well, anyway, this is a long story, but basically I got involved in the Gridiron show.
Yes.
And I wrote a lot of stuff for that. That was a great experience. Got a little exposure from my writing. I wrote the character Numa. I know where you got them shoes. Shexnaidre for one of the Gridirons. Someone else did it. The next year they asked me, why don't you do it? So I decided I would try it, and luckily it was a hit. So from that time on, I started doing my own shows under the guise of Numa. I know where you got them shoes, Shexnaidre. And this show, News with the Pist, that I'll be doing this Friday, which is tomorrow, the 8th of June, at Cello's, 3401 North Holland in Metairie at 8 p.m. It's right behind the main post office. For those of you not familiar with it, it's behind the main post office. So I started doing my shows, and I've done probably 20 shows, 17 of them one man, and they're about local politics, basically. And I was scared to death to go on stage, and it took me about 3 or 4 years of forcing myself to go up there that I got to where I wasn't petrified. I still get really nervous, but I do it, and why I do it, I don't know, but I do it. And this particular show, we're going to be covering the Sewage and Water Board, crime in New Orleans, how New Orleans goes about fighting crime. And I'm also going to be talking to Jeff Bezos on the phone to try to get him to reconsider to move his new Amazon facilities in New Orleans, because we didn't make the cut. But I think he's making a big mistake, because I mean he's not going to find a unique place like this where we have a convicted felon as our coroner, where we had a twice board attorney on our city council, stuff like that. It's a really unique culture that we have down here, especially politically. And I also have a show. I also have a thing in my live shows called Wait, Wait, Don't Shoot Me, which is a game show, the New Orleans game show that tries to explain the unexplainable in New Orleans and Louisiana government. There are no right answers. It's called the Louisiana education model, and everybody wins. I throw prizes to the crowd like seals at the zoo or in a Mardi Gras parade. So that about sums it up, I guess, the show, anyway.
So how did you come up with News with the Pist? I mean,
well,
go ahead.
Well, I tried to get a title for the shows that'll catch people's attention, and one of the ways to do that is to name it after a public official. Let's say like the Nagin going away party, which I did with Philip Melancon, with the great Philip Melancon doing music. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, there's also a musical element to the show. I have a musical guest, and the musical guest is going to be the great Kelsey Mae, who's one of the great singer-songwriters that's located in New Orleans, and she's fabulous, and she's done several shows with me, and I get nothing but great compliments about her. So that's also part of the show. But another way to get people's attention is to maybe do a play on words for the titles, like The Beast of Southern Denial was a previous show that I did. This one is there's a show called News with a Twist on WGNO, which is a news show that's done in a kind of a casual way. So I just came up with the play on words of News with the Pist. And actually, when people see the name, I do get a reaction from them. So I think it's worked in that sense, that people take notice of it when they see it and want to know what it is. I also have a radio show on WSLA, 1560 AM every Thursday morning at 8 AM. And I have a feature on there called News with the Pist, where it's a call-in radio show with no callers. I used to have a call-in radio show on WGSO, and I would get like maybe 4 callers in an hour if I was lucky. So I decided on this show I would just take emails. So I make up 40 minutes of emails and I answer them. And on that show, I have Sue Gonzi. Many of you in the theater community know Sue, and she's my sidekick, and she's kind of like my Robin Givens, yeah. So she laughs at everything I say pretty much. So that's why she's there. She's my Ed McMahon. So
is Sue the lady who worked over at Le Chatois?
Yes.
Okay. How about that?
Sue used to be on radio in California before she moved to New Orleans.
Okay.
And she has a very interesting story. She was producing a show in San Francisco, and it was during the Iran hostage situation, and they was throwing around ideas for the show, and they said it would be great if they could get some of the hostages on their show. So they basically just decided to try and call the embassy as a lark, and they got through, and they got to talk to some of the captors and everything on live radio by just making the attempt. It's a pretty interesting story.
Yeah.
But Sue's one of the great people in the city. She's just a fabulous woman and fabulous friend.
Yeah. I definitely concur. I mean, for sure. So getting back to, is Numa going to be on your show?
Oh yeah, Numa is the. I do the whole show is in the guise of Numa. We have the Sewage and Water Board piece is called an audio book called Sewage and Water Boarding by Numa. I Know Where You Got Them Shoes, Shexnaidre, read by the author. And I have 12 chapters in 2 parts about the Sewage and Water Board. And the Wait, Wait, Don't Shoot Me segment of the game show segment of my show, it gives me an opportunity to change some of the content of the show from week to week, a month to month, to keep up with current events. Like I'm going to cover our new mayor, at least in half of the questions in the Wait, Wait, Don't Shoot Me segment, because I mean, that's topical. And also she's only been in, like, I think it's a month to the day today, because I think May 7th was the inauguration. So, I mean, I want to give her a chance to have a body of work before I start to make fun of her, but she's come out the gate pretty strong. So,
right.
So I got a lot of stuff. I don't want to let it all out the bag. I mean, if I do a new show, I probably won't do it until the fall about Miss Cantrell. Although I did do a comedy sketch on my radio show called another audio book. It was called A Certain Girl. What's her name? Can't tell you. The first 8 years of LaToya Cantrell's reign as mayor of New Orleans before it happens, by Fug Stinkley. It's a fictitious rendition of what's going to happen, but she's done. I mean, she's really, like I say, she's come out of the gate pretty strong, from a satirical sense.
Right.
She said in her inauguration she was going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, but if you're a political satirist, all she's done is given me a big tickle so far. So well, she's leaning heavy. The flood, she's leaning heavy. Whatever that means. I think that means that she's leaning 37% angle, so when the water comes, it'll roll off of her into the drains at a nice, slow pace, so we won't flood.
So I mean, she definitely has a. I mean, she has some big shoes to fill.
Well, I guess that's a matter of opinion. You will learn in my show how to actually solve the statue problem, though.
Which problem is that?
The statue problem.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
I'll give you a little taste of that.
Well, actually,
how you solve the statue problem. City council needs to pass an ordinance from now on. If you want to build a statue in New Orleans, it's required to have a removable head. So that way, if you add whoever it is, you can just take the head off, put your uncle up there. That way, you don't have to take it down. You know, go through all of that.
Well,
no, he was successful, I think, in writing the ships for sure. You know, I mean, because after the leadership of the previous mayor, there was a lot of structural damage done, I think, to city government. And of course, Mitch said he knew what to do and knew how to do it, but of course, he didn't tell us whether that was a warning or a threat. I think it was kind of unfair.
Okay, so your audio actually has reduced a little bit.
Okay, so I have to talk louder or get closer or stand on my head or something. Okay, all right.
Okay, there you are. Okay. So are there any statewide issues in News with a Pist?
Well, you know, I was thinking about that, especially in the last week or so when we had one of our never-ending special sessions that we have, and they can't seem to actually do anything particularly. That I probably do need to start honing in more on our state government. I did notice one thing about they did change the law where you need 12 jurors now. Oh, they're going to put it on the ballot where we can vote where you need to have 12 jurors to convict, as opposed to 10 for capital offenses. And one of the reasons that they were able to come to a compromise when they can't come to a compromise on anything was because there was an amendment that hasn't gotten a lot of press, that the 10 out of 12 thing, there was a special amendment put in that if any LSU football coach loses more than 2 games in one season, he gets life in prison. So they put that in there, so then they got enough votes to pass it. So now it'll be 12. And actually, I think I hope that some of the legislature doesn't listen to my show, because they might actually put that in there. That would satisfy a lot of people, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. So how's Numa doing? Why don't you do just maybe one of your select performances?
Okay. Well, let's see. Chapter 9 in sewage and waterboarding by Numa. I know where you got them shoes, Shexnaidre. It's called Historic Preservation. Well, when the city council was grilling Joe Becker, the deputy sewage and water board director at the time, about what happened on the August 5th flood, he revealed that the way that the sewage and water board keeps track of what they've done is they don't use computers. They eschew computers. They do everything on a paper ledger that they fill in with pencil, just like they've been doing since the 1930s. So they believe in historic preservation, historical things, because I mean, they don't even use a ballpoint pen. The ballpoint pen is like George Jetson technology to the sewage and water board. In fact, it also came out that they had, rudimentary communication devices. Now, I'm not really sure what that means. I think it means that they have elderly carrier pigeons that no longer have the power of flight and have to get around the city by Uber. And also, I'll discuss about the water advisories. We do have safe drinking water in New Orleans most of the time. And we found out during some of the water advisories that one of the reasons that we didn't have clean water to drink in the 21st century was because a metallic balloon had gone up against a electric wire and knocked out the turbines. So let's recap here. That was a balloon, a metallic balloon that you could buy for $1 at the dollar store that said "Happy Birthday," knocked all of our drinking water out. So I just hope that Al Qaeda doesn't get wind of this, because they could probably knock out the entire grid of North America for $14, electric grid. So that's only part, and not even the best part of Chapter 9.
Chapter 9.
Waterboarding. And the show again is Friday night at Cello's, 3401 North Holland at 8 p.m. That's tomorrow night. And you can have dinner with the show if you like, or you don't have to have dinner, and you can drink during the show. And it's a pretty nice room. It's a large room. It's very comfortable. Lots of parking. So I hope I'll see everybody out there.
Okay, that's 8 p.m. North Holland at Cello's.
Cello's.
Yeah.
3401 North Holland. And it's June 8th, tomorrow night, Friday night. And
okay. So listen, those people who are currently watching, please go ahead and share. Please like. We'd like to get this out there. We want to get a good crowd for Mr. Pist.
Mr. Pist. Yeah, that's
Mr.
me.
Pist.
I have many nicknames.
Numa.
I have many nicknames. Most of them in Russian.
Numa Pist. Yeah. So we definitely want to get a good crowd. We'll be putting up some of the content on Bayou Buzz, along with some of the transcript. So those people who are watching afterwards, please go ahead and share and maybe post or whatever. Listen, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your taking your time being on the show, and we got you into the 22nd century technology, I think, and
sewage and water board never get there in time.
right. Well, they need some trial balloons.
No, they don't need any balloons. They have to stay away from balloons. Balloons are like kryptonite, okay, to the sewage and water board.
Right, gotcha. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit a couple buttons real quick, and say goodbye to the world. So bear with me.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, just stay on for a second if you don't mind. Let me go and get rid of Twitter.